The year is 44 AD. We are in the heart of the Roman Empire, specifically the rolling hills of the Lazio region, just outside the capital's eternal walls. Before the first drop of wine can ever be poured, a monumental task begins on this silent, barren stage. The Roman surveyors, dressed in simple tunics of coarse linen and leather sandals, kneel upon the sun-baked earth to perform a ritual of science. They are not looking for gold, but for the perfect balance of volcanic ash and limestone, the specific terra rossa that will eventually give life to the vine. Observe the sheer scale of the reclamation. Massive teams of white oxen, their muscles rippling under the Mediterranean sun, pull heavy wooden plows tipped with iron. They carve deep, rhythmic furrows into the earth, breaking a crust that has remained untouched for centuries. There is a profound stillness here, strictly no grapevines are present yet. Only the raw, red dust of Italy rising in clouds behind the plows. Laborious with tanned skin and sun-bleached hair follow behind, scattering aged organic compost and dark volcanic minerals from the shadow of Vesuvius. This is the industrial preparation of an empire, a calculated, aggressive transformation of the wilderness into a fertile canvas, awaiting the master's touch. Every clod of earth is turned, every stone is removed, ensuring the soil is aerated and enriched to a depth that will support roots for decades to come. In the arid heat of the Roman summer, water is the most precious commodity of all. Without a sophisticated hydraulic system, the dream of a grand vineyard would wither into the dust before it ever began. Here, Roman engineering takes center stage, demonstrating the empire's mastery over nature. Engineers, with skin bronzed by the elements and wearing leather-belted tunics, use the grommer and chorobates to measure the land's slope with an accuracy that rivals modern tools. The sound of iron hammers striking limestone echoes across the valley as masons construct the secondary channels. These stone arteries will eventually connect to the great aqueducts, the monumental lifelines of Rome. Deep wells are bored into the bedrock, and massive cisterns are lined with opus signinum, a specialized waterproof concrete made of crushed pottery and lime. Watch the laborious lay miles of interlocking terracotta pipes into the dry trenches. There are still no plants in sight, only the vast, geometric network of stone and clay. This is the skeleton of the plantation, a cold, functional machine of irrigation designed to pulse with life, turning a desert into a systematic garden of production. The flow of water is tested, sluice gates are fitted, and the infrastructure is finalized to ensure that when the vines arrive, not a single drop of water will be wasted. Within the protected sanctuary of the seminarium, or the Roman nursery, the mystery of life is managed with industrial precision. The Romans do not leave growth to chance or the whims of nature. Expert viticulturists, men whose hands are stained by decades of soil and sap, perform the sacred art of the malleoli, the propagation by cuttings. They select only the most vigorous canes from elite mother vines, cutting them at a precise diagonal to maximize the rooting surface. In thousands of handcrafted terracotta pots, these cuttings are buried in a mixture of fine river sand and rich humus. Under the dappled shade of reed mats, we witness the miracle of the bud burst. Tiny, fuzzy silver-green nodes begin to swell, eventually unfurling into delicate, translucent leaves. These are the infants of the empire, the future wealth of Lazio. Roman women, wearing simple stolas and their hair tied back in traditional knots, meticulously hand-water each pot with ceramic pitchers. They monitor every leaf for signs of disease or pestilence, nurturing these tiny green sparks until they are strong enough to endure the open sun of the plains. Each plant is a genetic replica of greatness, a promise of the vintage to come, held within a fragile clay vessel until the time is right for the next stage of the journey. The spring equinox marks the beginning of the most labor-intensive phase, the transplantation. A massive caravan of mule-drawn carts, loaded with thousands of established saplings in their pots, moves slowly from the nursery to the now hydrated fields. The landscape, once a chaotic expanse of red dirt, has been transformed into a perfect grid of potential. The laborious work with a rhythmic, almost military efficiency, their movements honed by years of tradition. Following the knotted ropes of the surveyors, they dig deep, square pits spaced exactly 5 feet apart in the quincunx pattern. Each sapling is placed with extreme care, its roots fanned out over a bed of fine volcanic ash to encourage rapid expansion. As the red earth is shoveled back in and packed down by sandaled feet, the first chestnut stakes are driven into the ground with heavy wooden mallets. By sunset, the valley has a completely new silhouette. Thousands of young green stems now stand in defiant, straight lines, supported by their wooden guardians. This marks the formal birth of a vineyard that will produce wine for generations. The air is filled with the smell of turned earth and the sound of hundreds of workers moving in unison, a human machine building an agricultural monument. Growth in a Roman vineyard is not a wild or natural affair, it is a matter of strict and constant discipline. Over the next several years, the culture of the vine becomes a daily battle against the elements and biology. Pruning is the primary weapon in the Roman arsenal. Using sharp, curved bronze blades called falx venatoria, workers move through the rows, ruthlessly cutting back excess shoots to ensure the plant's energy is forced into the main trunk. This is a deliberate shaping of destiny, a control of biological growth for industrial output. The irrigation gates are opened, and water hisses through the terracotta pipes, filling the circular stone basins at the base of each vine. To protect the fruit, the Romans employ an early form of chemical warfare. Teams of laborers carry large bellows, puffing fine sulfur dust and lime wash over the canopies to ward off fungi and pests. We see the vines thickening, their bark turning shaggy and grey as they climb the trellises. Finally, the inflorescence appears, tiny, fragrant white blossoms that hum with the sound of 1,000 bees. Soon, the first green berries appear, hard as green stones, growing larger every day under the intense and unwavering gaze of the Roman sun. The vineyard is a living factory, monitored by overseers who walk the rows with scrolls, noting the progress of every sector with a bureaucrat's precision. Late summer brings the Irrigation, the magical and transformative moment when the grapes soften and begin to flush with color, turning from hard green beads to a deep, royal purple. This is the ultimate signal for the Vendemmia, the great Roman harvest. The estate suddenly becomes a hive of feverish and joyous activity. Hundreds of laborers, including men, women, and even children, descend upon the rows in the cool air of dawn. The air is thick with the scent of sugar and the rhythmic snip of bronze knives. Each cluster is handled like a fragile gemstone, placed gently into wicker baskets to keep the waxy bloom of the skin intact. The sun beats down on their tan shoulders as the baskets are filled to the brink with heavy, juice-laden fruit. This is the climax of years of engineering, irrigation, and back-breaking labor. The vineyard is no longer just a field, it is a high-output factory of flavor, producing the raw material that will eventually intoxicate the citizens of the greatest city on earth. Workers sing traditional harvest songs, their voices echoing through the hills, as the baskets are gathered at the edge of the fields. The sheer volume of fruit is staggering, a testament to the power of Roman agricultural science and the fertility of the volcanic soil. The harvest does not end in the field, it is a race against time and the Mediterranean heat. Massive ox carts, their wooden axles groaning and creaking under the weight of the purple bounty, begin the journey to the villa's processing core. These carts rumble over the basalt stones of the private estate roads, heading toward the torcularium, the industrial press house. The transport is a logistical masterpiece, requiring careful coordination to ensure the flow of fruit is constant. Runners move between the fields and the villa, signaling the progress of each team. The red dust of the Lazio roads coats the wheels and the legs of the mules, but the cargo remains pristine within its baskets. Every cart represents a massive investment of imperial capital, a season's worth of profit hanging in the balance. As the carts pass through the heavy stone gates of the winery, the transition from agriculture to industry is formally complete. The scent of crushed grapes begins to dominate the air, a sweet and heavy aroma that marks the start of the next phase of the process. Inside the courtyard, the fruit is weighed and recorded on wax tablets, ensuring that every cluster is accounted for in the estate's ledgers. Inside the cool, shadowed halls of the torcularium, the transformation of fruit into liquid begins. First comes the treading. Young men, their legs stained a permanent and deep violet, move rhythmically upon the grapes in shallow stone vats. This gentle pressure releases the protropum, the virgin juice that flows into ceramic basins without the need for any mechanical force. This is the highest quality liquid, destined for the finest tables in Rome. Then, the heavy industrial machinery is engaged. The great beam press, a monumental lever made of solid oak, is lowered onto the remaining pulp. Using winches and pulleys, the laborers apply immense mechanical pressure, forcing the juice through layers of woven wicker mats. This is a scene of intense physical labor and engineering power. The dark, frothy must is channeled through stone sluices into massive underground fermentation jars, known as dolia. Here, in the dark and the cool of the cellar, the juice will transform, bubbling with the invisible fire of fermentation under the watchful eye of the cellar masters. The jars are sealed with pine resin to control the process, and the air is thick with the gas of the turning wine, a potent reminder of the chemical magic happening within the clay. After months of aging in the dark cellars, the wine is finally ready for the world. It is transferred into the iconic Roman amphorae, pointed clay jars specifically designed for stacking in the holds of ships and the corners of warehouses. Each jar is sealed with a clay disc and pine resin, then stamped with the estate's official seal and the year of the consulate. The distribution is a marvel of the ancient world's logistics. Barges are loaded to the waterline and towed down the Tiber River toward the bustling docks of Rome. At the Emporium, the jars are offloaded by massive wooden treadwheel cranes and moved into the city's labyrinthine markets. From the luxury shops near the Forum to the dark, crowded taverns of the Subura district, the wine of Lazio finds its way into every hand. It is the currency of social life, the fuel of the legions, and the primary export of a thriving imperial economy. We see the amphorae being carried by porters through the narrow streets, weaving past senators and slaves alike. The journey from the quiet red soil of the vineyard to the noisy stone streets of the capital is a path paved with profit and the relentless demand of 1 million thirsty citizens. Our journey ends in a Roman triclinium, a grand and beautiful dining room adorned with vibrant frescoes of myths and gardens. Here, the final product is served to those who rule the world. The wine is poured into silver craters, mixed with water and perhaps a touch of honey or spices, according to the fashion of 44 AD. Reclining on silk-cushioned couches, the Roman elite enjoy the fruits of the soil and the mastery of their engineers. But the grape is enjoyed in its pure form as well. Silver platters are piled high with fresh, cold clusters, served alongside sharp pecorino cheese and warm, crusty bread. As the sun sets over the Capitoline Hill, casting long, golden shadows across the marble city, the citizens of Rome partake in this ancient and sacred sacrament. This is more than just food and drink, it is the physical manifestation of Roman order, engineering, and the eternal bond between the citizen and the soil. The cycle is complete, the investment has returned its profit, and beneath the moonlight, the vineyard at Lazio rests in the cool night air, its vines dormant and silent, preparing in secret for the next year's vintage to begin the cycle once again.